Hello, hello. Welcome to another practice time with Amy.
And Jamie.
I'm Amy. I am a relational therapist in Philadelphia. And I'm part of the Sentio team.
And I'm Jamie. I am a family therapist in Philadelphia, and I'm also part of the Sentio team.
So today we're continuing with our CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy practice. And we are going to do a skill today, exercise 10, responding to client resistance. Any thoughts, feelings about this one as we go into it?
Yeah, resistance is something that I encounter quite a bit in family-based services. Understandably, we are working with clients in their homes, and it's 2 to 3 times a week. So it's an intensive program. And part of our role is coming in as an outside system, restructuring the current family system. So ambivalence and resistance is somewhat common, especially in like the initial phases of treatment when we're, talking about doing some restructuring and things like that. So I am looking forward to learning more about particularly the CBT approach to client resistance. I think this will be pretty helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
What about you?
Yeah, I think resistance can feel really scary or stuck sometimes. And I think the challenge of like not getting kind of thrown off guard or defensive or like, oh, this isn't working, but instead knowing that's like stuff that's coming up for the client and they talk about rolling with resistance. So I think that is hard, but really important, right? To kind of go with the resistance. So I'm curious to see how it plays out today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to like roll with it, to go with it and have like a curiosity around it rather than like us as the therapist, like getting our feathers all ruffled and whatnot. That's not good. That's not helpful for anyone.
So there's 4 skill criteria for this skill of responding to client resistance. First criteria is momentarily step away from the CBT change agenda. Number 2, empathically explore the client's experience of treatment and you. Number 3, validate client's experience and roll with versus challenging their resistance. And 4, support clients' autonomy and elicit their motivation for pursuing valued directions. So 4 criteria we're going to try to meet today: rolling with resistance, empathically exploring client's experience, momentarily stepping away from the agenda.
Mm-hmm. And I can see how what we were working on in the last CBT practice time that we did, exercise 7, working with emotions with that focus on kind of avoidance. I can see how that would be a really important skill to have before moving into this more challenging skill.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. So, Jamie, you're going to be the therapist. I'm going to be the resistant client. Shall we jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
I have to admit, I'm not doing the homework. I don't think I distort my thoughts any more than the next person's. The assignment seemed a bit silly. Pardon my bluntness.
Yeah, I appreciate you being really direct with me and telling me, that you don't really see a point in the homework. And let's just kind of use today to just put our agenda aside. And yeah, could you tell me a little bit more about why the homework doesn't really like appeal to you?
Mhm. Okay, nice. So checking with the criteria on your response, James, you said, let's step away from our agenda, in that you really met criteria 1. You said something about exploring how you're feeling. I can't remember your exact words, but I think you met criteria 2, right? Getting curious about this resistance. You really thanked me, appreciated me sharing that. So that really met criteria 3. And then, yeah, I think you met criteria 4 in kind of trying to understand more about this resistance. So I think you met all criteria. I think it felt a little long-winded. So I wonder if doing it again to kind of hone in on a more concise response.
Yeah, that sounds great. Definitely, I felt myself like trail off a little towards the end and like couldn't quite got a little rambly there. So yeah, I definitely would like to try it again and clean it up and just see if I can make it feel a little bit more natural.
Okay. I have to admit to I'm not doing the homework. I don't think I distort my thoughts any more than the next person. So the assignment seemed a bit silly. Pardon my bluntness.
Yeah, and thank you for being so honest and direct with me about how you were feeling about the homework. Um, why don't we then? Why don't we just put our agenda aside for today and spend a little bit more time talking about maybe like what you would like to do. I mean, you shared with me that the homework seems silly. So what kind of things would you like to do maybe that wouldn't feel silly to you, that might feel a little bit more constructive for you?
Nice. I think that was really, really good, especially the ending. I really liked how you kind of wrapped it up. Um, and I really think you met all the criteria, right? You said, let's put our agenda aside. That met criteria 1. Explore, I can't remember your exact words again, but exploring kind of what was coming up for me in this resistance to the homework. You really validated, like, thank you for sharing this. And I think you really at the end got criteria 4 of, what is it about this homework that feels silly? What else would you want to do that feels constructive? I think all in all, that really met all of them.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely felt better the second time for sure. And it's like a little bit challenging kind of um to find the way of like just rolling with that resistance, right? Without just like wanting to like jump ship as the therapist and be like, nope, all right, we're not gonna touch that. Let's talk about something totally different.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I could see that being really challenging, and I think you managed that part really well. So good job.
Awesome.
You feel ready to do a harder statement?
I sure do.
I don't like it when you ask me if I have catastrophic thoughts. Aren't catastrophes reserved for wars and natural disasters? So no, I don't think I catastrophize. Please don't ask me again.
Okay, yeah. That makes a lot of sense as to why like the word catastrophe, would bring up some of these feelings for you. I really appreciate you being honest with me about that. So with that in mind, why don't we like table our agenda for today? And I'm wondering if you could just tell me a little bit more about what comes up for you with this like this word catastrophe, catastrophizing.
Mm, nice. That was a great response. I think you hit on all of the criteria. Again, you stepped aside from the agenda, validated me bringing it up, and got really curious about like, what is it about this word catastrophe that you're feeling so resistant to? I think that was great.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that felt pretty good as well. Do you think we could just jump to check the example response for that one? I'm curious.
So
And if you want, if you could read the statement, I will read the response.
So the client statement says, I don't like it when you ask me if I have catastrophic thoughts. Aren't catastrophes reserved for wars and natural disasters? So no, I don't think I catastrophize. Please don't ask me again.
And the example response is, it seems like my words upset you, and I totally get it. Here I am using a CBT term that I assumed would be relevant to you, when in fact it's not. I really should not have made that assumption, and I'll do better to check in. In fact, I wonder if you find any part of focusing on your cognitions to be useful.
I think you did so well at that. Do you feel okay about moving on to another statement?
Let's go for it.
Honestly, I don't know about CBT. Almost seems a bit condescending.
I get why, you might be a little apprehensive about CBT. Maybe might bring up some feelings when, you're like, why is my therapist throwing these words at me? It feels condescending. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. So I'm wondering if today, in light of what you just shared, if we can put aside our agenda and focus a little bit more on what you shared and on what about CBT in particular feels condescending.
Well done. I think again, really met criteria. Really met criteria. 1, stepping away from the agenda. Criteria 2, exploring like what is feeling condescending, right? Exploring that resistance. Criteria 3, validating, appreciate you bringing that up. And criteria 4, the kind of
Mhm. Cool, thanks. Yeah, that felt pretty good. Yeah, I think for me, this exercise in particular, just as I was saying with like the family-based work that I do, I think this is something that I encounter quite a bit. But it was really helpful to have the breakdown of this criteria. Because there are definitely times, I'm thinking very fresh memories of just a session that had quite a bit of resistance just last week. And so part of me is like, I wish that I had done this last week. I think it could have been really, really helpful. Because they're really challenging situations, especially when you have multiple people involved. So I think turning to this criteria is going to be especially grounding for me when I'm met with client resistance.
Yeah. And I think you did such a good job of getting curious about it, right? Like, again, I think when there's resistance, it can feel like I know sometimes I want to kind of double down and be like, well, what do you mean? Like, CBT is helpful and here's why and blah, blah, blah. But that's the opposite of what we're meant to do when clients are resistant. And instead, like meeting them where they are, validating that, being like, what is coming up that feels bad about this? That feels helpful. And I think you did a really good job of getting into that today.
Awesome. Thanks, Ames.
No problem, James. So thanks for joining us for practice time with Amy and Jamie, and we will see you next time.